Well, thank you again for being on the podcast. I did meet you through Randy, and Randy obviously represents Carson. You also like work with a few artists yourself.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you though, how did you? I guess like what was your earliest, like the moment that you knew you kind of wanted to do this, what you're doing now?
It was crazy. It's like, I guess I'll go way back to like middle school when I started appreciating rap a lot more. Um, it's, I mean, for me, it was really, I started getting into TD around that time too, which is crazy because I just remember, them being, that's when it was just, J-Rock, Soul, Kendrick, Q. So it's like, they seemed so like close. It was like you couldn't get in there,
Yeah.
And it's like, whether that was me trying to be like, involved, just helping out with anything, or at the time trying to even thinking if I would be a rapper. But yeah, so it's kind of crazy because I was like, God, they look like two, but I'm sure they've been together since the start, since they first started. And then, man, I mean, so I guess I'd have to go to the like beginning of how I even met Musa, because he's probably the one that got me into wanting to be into music.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't know, Musa is Top's son. And for those of you who don't know who Top is the CEO of the label. Obviously, the label's named after him, Top Dog. So, yeah, I was, so originally what I wanted to do was hospitality. That's what I wanted to go to school for, so hotel and restaurant management. And then even before that, like, I really wanted to play baseball. But, yeah, I was never that good.
Yeah.
But I mean, so yes, I mean, on top of that, I was like, I do want to get into like, hotel and restaurant management because I was really interested in like, just working in restaurants.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, I like cooking also. So, yeah, so I did this class in my senior year of high school, and basically it's called ROP, but basically it's like, I think every school kind of has their own program like this, where basically you train in a specific field, you take classes for that, and as you grade, you have to work, whether that be like at a restaurant or retail or whatever field it is, So what mine was, they sent us to restaurants. So they gave us a few options actually. So I think it was, they send you to the hotel in Downey, which is the Embassy Suites. They send you to a few restaurants at in the Downey Promenade, which is right there down Lakewood.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was right down the street from the Promenade. I really wanted to do the hotel because I think that'd be a lot cooler. I think it'd be really cool to work at a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess at the end it worked out that I didn't do that. So they sent me to California Fish Grill. And even aside from that, they almost sent me to another restaurant. They almost sent me to Gacho Grill.
Uh-huh.
So I went to Fish Grill. I worked there. And they before the, when we were still in the class, the teacher would tell us, if you're a really good worker, once you finish your hours, they'll ask you to come back. You could come back and work for them.
It's kind of like an internship, but for
basically,
credits.
But yeah, so I was doing it at California Fish Grill. So that happened. I wanted to come back, but it was kind of difficult because it was like towards the end of senior year, and obviously like I had a lot of stuff going on, and then I was still in baseball season, so it just wasn't going to work out. Nobody on the team had a job like that, so I was like, it's not going to be able to work. So I told them that, I'm sorry, I probably won't be able to, so they were understanding about it. Then July 2017, so after I graduated, they called me back, and I was like, yeah, I'll go, check it out, I'll go back. So I did get, hired, worked there. The crazy thing is, I left for like 3 months to go to Benihana's for better pay.
Yeah.
So there's like so much stuff that happened that like, if I wouldn't have, taken a certain route, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
So luckily, I realized Benihana's was really shitty. They treated me like shit there. They were, our manager actually got fired for stealing our tips. So it was like a mess. Like it was just, I remember when I was there, since the manager got fired, they had to have like people fill in every week. So we would have managers from all over the region just come in. So I had like 8 different managers that time. It was bad. Like, I can't do this. They tried to convince me to come back, but I was like, I'd rather just go back to Fish Grill. It was more steady. So yeah, I went back to Fish Grill. So basically how it went down was one day, every time I see people with like TDE gear or like, Kendrick or Q or anybody, I'd always compliment, oh, I like your hat. Like, oh, when'd you see them? So I thought I always just try to keep conversations with them. So one day I saw the lineup for Smokers Club Fest, and that one, Q was headlining it. There was a lot of good people. I really wanted to see Mac. Obviously Mac's one of my favorite rappers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I wanted to go see him. Cuddy, Wiz Khalifa was there. All the, and then so I just thought, cool. And Zay was there too. So I bought my ticket, a week later, two guys walk in. So I see one of them wearing a Dodger hat and it had a TDE logo on the side. That's the nicest hat I've ever seen. I really want that hat. So right automatically I just go to him like, hey, I really like your hat. Where'd you get it from? And he's like, oh, I got it from my label. So I was like, oh shit, okay. So like right then and there, I was like, okay, cool. I could handle this as like two ways. I could either freak out right now and go crazy, or I could just calmly say like, oh, that's cool. Cool. You work with that.
Yeah.
So then I started talking. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm a big fan. So this guy was like, oh, that's crazy. Oh no, I'm sorry. So I told him, oh, that's crazy. I just got tickets like yesterday or a few days ago to go see Q in concert. Or Q and Zay at that festival, and he's like, "Oh, that's crazy." He's like, "That's Q's manager right there." So he pointed at Musa. So I was like, "Oh shit, okay." So obviously, I wanted to approach him, but I was like, "Nah, it's gonna be kind of weird. It's gonna be kind of like,
they're trying to get in." I
just want to do that. And then plus, when there was only 3 of us working at Fish Grill, one person had to be on the register, one person had to be cleaning tables, and one was like, running back and forth or doing expo. So that day they had to put me on register, so I couldn't leave the register at all. So I saw them walk out. I was like, damn, I probably missed the opportunity. Whatever. So a few weeks later, it was a Sunday. I went in. I remember because I was gonna call off that day because the day before was like it was my dad's birthday, so we celebrated. And obviously, I was tired the next day, so I don't want to go. I'm probably gonna call off. But then last minute, I was like, I'm not doing anything tonight. Whatever. So I go in, and Musa goes again.
No way.
So yeah, so I see him, and this time I'm like, I'm not letting this time go by. So I was like, you're Q's manager, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, how'd you know? I was like, oh, last time, the guy who had told me. So I started talking. I'm like, oh, that's crazy, and like, I guess I was the only one in the restaurant that knew about TDE because nobody had a clue of like, maybe like really hear like Kendrick's name and stuff, but like I would always go up to him and talk to him about music, and I remember that that day I was just like I was like, oh cool, like I'm probably gonna go see them the championship tour. I'm excited. I thought it was cool, and he was like, it was just cool. I was like, cool. I just built that connection with him. Every time he'd go in, I just talk to him. I just like, oh, what's up? Oh, I heard this about Zay. I heard this about SZA. All that. We would just talk like music and stuff, just like music in general a lot. So he would just be surprised that I knew so much about the label. Like I said, I've always just been like a fan. So one day he was just like, how's work going? And there it started getting pretty bad. So I was like, it's just like, oh man, it hasn't been good. They've been cutting my hours. I've been trying to get a raise and stuff, and they've just been like, refusing to work with me and everything. So he was like, why don't you come on over here? Like, just kind of work with me. I was like, I was like, okay. I just like right there, just took out my apron, like I'm out.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm just kidding. Fuck this place. Yeah. But I mean, so it took a few months where like he got back to me about it, but I had already quit because I was like, like I don't even want to be here. I'd rather just start working with my dad again. Yeah. So I was working with my dad again for a bit, and then a few months later he would just call me and ask me like, oh, can you help me do this? Can you get me right here? Can you help me this and that? So yeah, that's when I started getting connected with him. Started like working a lot more with him, and then that's when I started meeting more people in the label. So that was all 2018, and now I mean that's. Just being around him, just I guess, kind of really gave me like an idea. Like, man, like this looks cool. Like, I think I could do that. I think I could help. Maybe this. I've always had a hard time finding things I'm good at. And taking advantage. Just kind of taking advantage of my ability and working with that. So when I saw, what it took to like manage someone or just work in music, obviously I knew it was gonna be a challenge, but I was like, maybe this is something I should be doing. Maybe it's something a little more in my field. So yeah. So that's kind of when it started. And since then, I've just had like countless stories, countless experiences that I'm never gonna forget. So I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think what's tight about your story though too, and like very similarly, I grew up like more like sport head, right? Like I just love sports, talking about sports, and growing up, the only way I thought you could be working in sports was to be the athlete. Or exactly. Maybe like a referee or a coach, but it just felt very limited as what you could do. No, and I'm sure like you kind of brought it up too, like at one point, I think even I like wanted to I would write stuff down trying to rap and whatever, but then you realize you can't. You're like, shit. Well, there goes my working in music career, right? And but it's cool. Like as you get older and you're open to different experiences, you can like work in music, you can work in sports in different like areas, and I think that's cool. Like even like seeing Randy, because I met Randy probably when he was like 16, 17, and then to see like he went to school for something different, and then like during school he found Carson, he found like a passion that he wants to do. He's been capitalizing on all these opportunities. I'm like, dude, that's dope. Like, that's cool. Like, I want to see more people do stuff like that because when you're working in somewhere, like, I'm sure you could attest to this too, but like when you're working in an environment that you love and like in a field that you love, it just doesn't even feel like work. It's enjoyable.
Exactly, yeah. 100%.
You know, I don't know about you, but like I've worked a lot of different jobs. Not in a restaurant ever, but it's pretty miserable sometimes. You know, you just kind of count the hours go by on the clock, and you're just like, ugh, like this again, you know. But it's definitely cool when you have something to work towards, whether it's like in music and sports or something like that.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, don't get me wrong, like I did like all the jobs I had, you know, before. You know, and obviously if it wasn't for some of those jobs, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, exactly. It's just kind of like, it's interesting how sometimes, I wouldn't say it's like a circle, but it's like you go back to, you know, what you love. You know, and for me, it was like growing up, when I was younger, I used to sing. I used to actually be in mariachi. I used to do that when I was younger. So I would do like vocals or like, I tried to do guitar. What's up?
You would sing for like
that's when I was up to like 6 years old or like 7 years old, and then I got older, puberty hit, so obviously
my voice changed. Oh, that's cool though.
But no, I mean it's just kind of cool because like for me, music always has been like a big part of my life. You know, obviously like music, baseball, cooking, stuff like that. But yeah, you know, I'm just thankful that I'm able to do all these things that I really enjoy doing. And yeah, it's like I said, yeah, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, all it takes is meeting like the one person or the right person, and they'll help you get into that field. You know, they'll kind of walk you through it, and it's like, you know, from there, all the doors open. There's so many doors around you that are opening. You know, I'm working with people, like, it's like, I get connected with them somehow throughout, so like, you know, in this case, I got connected to Carson through Jasper, who's worked with us in the label and stuff, you know, so from there, I met Carson. And obviously, like, you know, Randy and Carson, I met them, and then through Randy, I met you, and it's like, now look, I'm right here. You know, it's crazy how, like, you really just networking really does make a big difference, you know, and that's all it is, you know, and I'm, you know, thankful, you know, that it happened. I'm thankful Jasper told me about, you know, them two, and then them two told me about you, and it's like, it's crazy that now I'm here, you know, doing an interview, you know, doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's a small world, you know. I did want to ask you, because earlier you mentioned that middle school is like when you started paying more attention to hip-hop. Who are some of your earliest favorite rappers at that time?
So you know what? I guess I'll go back to I was like 4 years old, because that's my first like introduction to like hip hop, and for me, everything in between then it was just kind of like, you know, more mainstream, and then middle school is when it kind of got more like a deeper appreciation to it. So the first album I ever owned was the Speaker Box Love Below. So I was, you know, and that's because at the time, you know, Roses was such a big song, so that was, you know, that was my favorite song at the time. So my mom bought me the edited version. But I was like, Mom, can you play it again? Can you play it again? I would just have her, you know. And it's crazy, like, thinking that's the album that got me into hip hop, because it's like a lot of, like, you know, a lot of people would say that's Outkast's worst album.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's poppy.
It's very different from the other stuff, but for me, it's just like that's the first album I really fell in love with. So it's like I can go back to that, and it's like a very nostalgic feeling. So yeah. So from there, after that, I started, you know, and it's funny because like there's times where like I get into somebody, and it's like somehow I know they're gonna be like, you know, the best. I mean, it's not that somehow I know. Obviously, you know, they're proving that they're gonna be the best. But like, you know, I remember getting on Kendrick very early. Even someone like Baby Keem. You know, I remember too. I have DMs when I was like talking to him, telling him how his first EP was. I was like, bro, this shit's so cool, and we would just go back and forth. And now he's over here. You know, he's on Kanye's album. So yeah. So from there, I mean, Outkast was my first like favorite like, group, where just like, you know, they were my introduction to hip hop. And then as I got older in middle school, I didn't realize, like, damn, 3 Stacks is, like, people considered 3 Stacks one of the greatest ever.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I found out about him off, like, a radio hit, you know? But it's, like, I started doing more deep dive into Outkast's discography, you know? And then from there, I started getting into, like, I guess, like, more, like, 80s, 90s hip-hop, because that's, like, what my parents and my brother and all of them would listen to. So it's, like, you know, I started listening to a lot of, like, NWA, a lot of just West Coast music. That was mostly my introduction. No, I'm sorry, not my introduction, but that's, like, you know, I started getting a lot like into West Coast music, obviously being out here. And then, yeah, it's like, then I started listening to Kendrick, I started listening to J-Rock and all them, and it's just like, I started realizing more and more like how important music is to some people, where it's like they're talking about their life basically. Yeah. You know, and this, like, you go back to the start, like, you know, what they categorize like gangster rap as in the 80s, you know, it used to be called reality rap. So now it got to the point where it's like gangster rap, people kind of like, what would I say? Like, I guess like look down on it. They kind of see it as just like, it's like, they don't realize that a lot of people are telling stories in their song, you know? Yeah. They just kind of hear like parts of it talking about sex, drugs, alcohol, and stuff, and then they kind of assume that like, you know, they don't realize that the what they're saying in between those lines, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, it gets mislabeled by people who like are outside the culture.
No, for sure.
And are just always, they're always going to be haters per se of like a certain genre or a certain thing.
Yeah.
And so they're just like trying to poke holes at it as why you shouldn't like this. And don't get me wrong too, I think like especially like in the movie and they talk about like NWA, like I know it was like such an extreme where people are like, oh, like that, they're just so quick to blame NWA because that was like the most extreme. But you're right. I mean, there's and it's like the storytelling sometimes is so good. Like you mentioned Schoolboy Q earlier, like there's a lot of things that he says in his music that I like could never relate to. You know what I mean? Because like you know, I grew up in like a suburb like my teenage years, so you know, but it's just the way he conveys it, and it's like not only his flow but his cadence, and then like how much passion he's saying with his voice. I think it's pretty cool, you know, and I think like some of my favorite, I think my first favorite hip hop artist was The Game.
Yeah, he was my introduction to West Coast hip hop.
So and like documentary, Doctor's Advocate, like just hearing those things, like I think my parents were like, oh, this is gangster rap, like why are you listening to this? And it's like, no, but he's like telling a story, like you know, and all these different, you know, some like none of it, but he did reference a lot of gang culture, but he never said like, oh yeah, you should do this or you should do that. Like he was just telling his life story, and it happened to be very gang affiliated. But you know, I don't know. I always really like that kind of music. I just like storytelling in general, whether it's gang affiliated or not. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, see, like you could get something like that album, and it's like that's some, like his. You know, you mentioned the documentary. Like that's some of his best work. And you know, I feel like a lot of people don't really give him a chance to like listen to his music. I guess, especially now, because I guess people don't take him as serious, which is it's crazy. But like, man, at the time, it was, you know, he was definitely like. You know, one of the best lyricists in the game.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, if you could really like, you know, something like you could pick it out, you appreciate it a lot more. You know, and my appreciation for music is just getting higher and higher now as like I'm getting more involved with it.
Yeah.
You know, and I always encourage people to you know, one thing I'm thinking about too is like, you know, as far as like the lyrics and stuff, also like another way to help you appreciate the music. Like once you understand how mixing and mastering works, once you like understand what an engineer's job is, you appreciate the song like 10 times more.
Yeah. Hearing
the little details you won't hear and stuff like that, you know, and it's like that. It's little things like that that makes like a great artist or make somebody appreciate their work a lot more.
Yeah, and for me at least too, I felt like I started appreciating music a lot more like 2010, 2011. I was in high school at the time, and that's when we started. I think we had a computer like a little bit before then, like maybe a year or two before. But then I like really discovered YouTube and just like the endless opportunities in music that are on there.
Sure.
And, you know, around that time was TD coming up, you know, a lot of Odd Future was coming up at that time. ASAP Mob was coming up, Pro Era was coming up. So I started getting into all these little different niches. But I remember as a kid, like the only like CDs I could buy myself are those like now that's what I call music. And so you could listen to the hip hop on those songs. But usually they only had like 5 or 6 hip hop songs.
Like pop songs.
Because it was like 20 tracks. A lot of them were pop or country or whatever. It was popping at that time.
Yeah.
But they were clean too. And I remember like, because in order to buy like an explicit CD, you had to be over a certain age. And my parents were always pretty strict as far as what I listened to. So they were never the type to buy it for me.
Yeah.
I was like one of the older cousins to my family. So I never had someone like older to be like, hey, like, you know, can you get this for me?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely around high school, around that time was like when I started just like really deep diving into like a lot of artists. Cool. YouTube downloaders, get it onto my iPod.
LimeWire, huh?
Yeah, LimeWire a little bit. So it was crazy though. Like you said, just like really appreciating the wide array of music. Because for the most part, you know, my parents put me onto a lot of like 80s, 90s music.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of it was hip hop, but like my dad was also really into Prince. My mom was into like disco, Donna Summer, stuff like that. That's too.
Cool, yeah.
They're also into like that like alternative rock scene, like Duran and stuff. So
I think that's like so cool too, and it's like I feel like, you know, I'm not saying you have to like go up there and say like music from the past is way better, but you have to have an appreciation for it then than, you know, for it now. Because I mean, for me, so like my parents would listen to a lot. Like my mom loves Earth, Wind and Fire. My dad loved a lot of rap, so he'd listen to like, you know, Too Short, NWA, all the Snoop Dogg, all of them, you know. And it's like, you know, and then for me personally, like when I was younger, I grew, you know, I started, you know, I really loved the Beatles music, and you know, it's like you have to go back and kind of just appreciate how it was before, how difficult it was to get like mixing and mastering done, because it's like, you know, obviously they didn't have computers, they just had a huge soundboard, and it's like, how the fuck did they do that? Like that's so crazy. And it's like now it's like there's so much. You know, you have a computer, you can just on this laptop, you could just mix a song, and it's like it's so crazy because like back then they had I don't even know how they did it, but it's like I started listening and it's like there's a lot of songs that like wouldn't be great songs without the mastering and stuff, and it's like man, like how did like Earth, Wind and Fire do that shit? Like how did all these like
even the Beatles, man, they were very experimental. Exactly. I remember one of the music classes that I took in college. They had like we watched a documentary on the Beatles and just how like I forgot what album it was. Maybe was it you probably know the Sgt Peppers.
Sgt Peppers, yeah. That's my Twitter handle. So
yeah, they just started like experimenting like with a bunch of different sounds off of their like instruments and like.
So yeah, because that was definitely. I mean, that was really the start of like the Summer of Love era. That's when it was in its prime. So it's crazy because like I know the album like inside out, from beginning to end, and. Yeah, I mean, it's just because, like, drugs were, obviously, they still are today, but, like, there's such a, like, taboo thing at the time where it's, like, when they started seeing people do, make music like that or, just, it was just, like, a whole new world to people.
Yeah.
And it was so demonized because, obviously, like, it was drugs, you don't want people to, be influenced by that. But you listen to Sgt. Peppers and it's, like, yeah, obviously, they probably were on drugs with this, but it's like definitely like something you can still enjoy when you're like not doing anything. For me, like as a kid, I would listen. I didn't really, I remember, a lot of people said Lucy in the Sky was like about LSD, but it's like at the time I just heard it as like a song talking about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's like it's not much to it. Or like one of my favorite songs on the album, which is like such a it's such a weird song. It's like when you ask people what they like about that album, like I remember there's a few like Mac Miller interviews where he's saying like I love the album so much because it was so weird. One of the songs I appreciate the most on that album, it's called Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's basically like the whole song is like a circus theme almost, and it's like there's accordions and stuff like that. It's like but in between the songs they add like animal noise and shit. There's one chord in the back of it. You could hear it in the back of your head just going on at once, like the same chord, but it's like catches your attention right away. And it's like that, that song is one of those songs I say like wouldn't be great unless the mastering is perfected. Yeah. And I remember even George Martin, who's their engineer, he said the same thing too. Like this song won't be great unless I master it perfectly, because it's all the after effects that go into it, that like make the song different, make the song pop out a lot more rather than it just be sounding like a circus song, And it's like, and it sounds weird when he's saying it, but it's like, like for me, it's just like that's one of those songs where I'm like, whoa, this is like crazy how like they did something like this in the '60s, and now we can do stuff that's like 10 times better than this. Now on our computer. So yeah, that's definitely something I realized is like to appreciate music, you gotta appreciate the past, the people who came before, because obviously all our favorite artists are influenced by a lot of people,
100%.
Kendrick's influenced by Dre, obviously, and then it's like from there it goes back, it keeps going back, and it's like, yeah, I'm actually gonna be taking a jazz class this year because I feel like jazz is the root of like most mainstream music right now. So I just feel it's like really interesting to get to learn, like go back further to the history of all this stuff, so I could definitely like go forward and realize how much music is like. How precious music is,
Yeah. I even think it's crazy, like speaking on TDE, Ab-Soul is my favorite, my first favorite rapper to come from that I discovered from that label, right? Listening back in that early 2000s era. But like now listening to Reason, I hear a lot of, since they're both from Carson.
Yeah.
And I don't think he said it in an interview, or maybe, I haven't heard it at least. But like you can hear a lot of like Ab-Soul and Reason's like wordplay.
No, for sure.
I'm just like, damn, like this is like crazy. Like there has to be a little bit of inspiration from Ab-Soul because like, the way he uses words is very similar to Ab-Soul. Obviously, like it's a different style, but like just that wordplay, the onomatopoeias, the play on words and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that really has a lot to do with it too. Where it's like, and it's like they're both from the same area, and you could kind of tell in their music, but they don't sound the same either. Reason isn't out here making the same songs that Soul is making. He's out there doing his own thing. And same thing for like all these other artists, like I mentioned Kendrick and Dre. Kendrick isn't doing what Dre's doing. You wouldn't hear Dre like doing something like Damn.
Yeah.
And eventually, if like 30 years from now, you're gonna be seeing somebody influenced by Kendrick not doing what Kendrick's doing, and that's what I think is crazy, because there's some people that get stuck in that I want to be exactly like this person, and you're not gonna grow from there because you're just holding yourself up to that standard.
Right.
You could say like I want to be like this person, but you also have to be your own style. You have to put your own style in, or whether that's picking, from different genres, different music, and putting it into your own style, and it's like that's all it takes. You just gotta like really find yourself in that process also.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean that's something I go over because I've been doing a lot more like artist development with the artists I work with, and like I'm not making music, but like from me, I could tell you from my perspective, and from there you could also build it out. So I want you to interact with other artists, so you guys could give each other advice. But like for me, it's like what I tell Adrian. That's what I tell my other artist Don. And yeah, just like don't be stuck up to that standard where you just want to be like this one person. Add your own taste to it. Add your own twist to it, so that way eventually you're going to be influencing people, and it's like you're going to get on that level where it's like, okay, like now people look up to me.
That's
a cool thing.
Yeah. Now, speaking of you working with artists now, you helped me reach out to people like Juno Glock, like you mentioned, Amo. How did you first come in contact with those artists?
So Amo, I've known him since high school. We played baseball together.
Okay.
So for me, it was a lot easier to work with him because I was just like, I already know this guy. It's a lot, I'd always liked his music because I remember he put some songs on SoundCloud and stuff. And I mean, from there, I kind of really saw a lot of potential in him. I was like, I know I could get him to really unlock his potential. Just kind of working on getting him better beats. Obviously, getting him engineers to work with so they could work on mixing and stuff. And just giving him as many resources as I could, so it's like, and it was easy because we work great together because it's like we know each other already, but we know when to take it serious, we know when to talk about this stuff, we know when to when we're about to release something, we gotta really work hard on it. And yeah, so that's how I met him. Juno Glock was actually, he would just reach out to me through Instagram, and one time I just checked out his music and I just started helping him a lot more, Dawn I met at a open mic in Inglewood.
Nice.
And yeah, I just she covered a song and she had very great crowd control, and that's something that, so before that I asked Musa, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go out here, I want to look for more artists. I was like, what do you think I should do when I look for somebody? And he kind of gave me a list. He's like, obviously their voice, lyrics, and he's like, one thing that a lot of people look out for is how they can control the room. That's really big. Obviously you want an artist that there's some artists that aren't even good artists, but if they know how to control the crowd, they could really make it work. So I saw that she really controlled the crowd. I thought it was just it was just, her energy was really great. So then I reached out to her and I asked her if she wanted me to help her out with that. So yeah, she trusts me with it. So yeah, I mean that's at least with those three artists. And then I also have Michael Weston, who Drew told me about. He's a producer, and yeah, man, it's he's already worked with Mike Will. He's really good friends with him. So I was like, okay, cool. You already got some experience in it. So it's I feel very confident with all my artists, and very confident that they could definitely be set the standard for people. Yeah. Also, I should say Drew isn't even my artist. I guess I just do more A&R work for him, and he has a manager and he has his own team. But yeah, I love that guy. I love all of them. So yeah.
No, and I just wanted to shout out him too because, like I said, I've had him on the show.
Yeah, that was
through Zoom,
really
obviously, but it was fun, and just even hearing his music, man. He's so unique.
He's so talented too. It's it sounds very polished. It sounds so natural to him when he raps and he freestyles and stuff. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely on his way up for sure. All of them are. So yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just been a lot of fun. Working with these people, meeting a lot of people, and obviously working with people on the label. Learning from my managers there, or just hanging out with the artists. It's really cool. Being around Zay, it's fun. Because then I get to learn stuff from an artist perspective also.
Yeah.
People hang out with people like Zay, Kembe, Alameda, all them. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's tight.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Zay. Obviously, he has an album. At the time of this recording, yes, it hasn't come out yet, but by the time I put this out, it'll be out.
Okay.
But talk to me about it. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. I guess what were some of the first surreal moments that you've had, whether it was working with Musa and TDE or just even working with your own artists that you have?
Yes, I mean, I guess we're on the topic of Zay. I think about the first time I met him was at Doghouse in Santa Monica. So what happened was Musa would just randomly hit me up and be like, yo, you think you can give me a ride somewhere? And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. So I remember it was nighttime already, and I was already I think I was already even asleep. But I remember he hit me up, and I remember I was I text him like, "Oh, I'm at home. What's up?" And I remember I was just like, while I was killing time, I just started looking at Instagram, and I saw that he was in a studio. I saw they were both in a studio. So he's like, "You think you come to like pick me up?" I was like, "Yes." I mean, like I was gonna like help him out anyway, so I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. I'll go." So like I just pull up. Or I don't even think I realized. I saw that he was at the studio. I don't think I realized Zay was at the same studio until I got there. When I was waiting for Musa, I was like on my phone, and I was like, "Oh shit, he might be inside."
Yeah.
And then Musa was like, "Oh, get down. I'm gonna be a while." So I walked in, and then that's when I met him. And I just remember that was such a crazy experience because he was in there with Kembe, and it was just like, "Oh shit!" Like he was, he's right there. So it tripped me out, and yeah, actually, as far as like surreal moments, also like I had moments like with Adrian, like a few weeks ago actually, or I'm sorry, this was back in May. So we were in the studio, and usually he'll send me his music before he records it, just to give me like an idea of what it's gonna sound like.
Yeah.
But he didn't send me this song. He was like, "Oh, I got something for this." Like, okay, cool. So he's in there, and then Micah's in there with us too, and I'm just talking to Micah the whole time. Like they're doing him and his engineer are doing their thing. His engineer is actually named Noah too.
Okay.
So they're doing their thing in there, and like I'm not really paying attention because obviously they have their headphones on. And then Adrian walks out the booth, and they start playing the music. So he's playing it and everything, and then it gets to a part towards the end where he shouts me out in the song, and I just remember thinking like, oh shit, like I didn't think like I'd ever, anybody would ever shout me out in a song, but he shouts me out and a few of our homies from high school, and it was just like crazy. I just remember tripping out. I was like, damn, like when we put this out, like my name's gonna be like, he's just, like, it's just crazy because I guess like, obviously it's not like we're like on like Kendrick's level or shit like that, but it's like, damn, like it's cool to see that like it's just like knowing that he like appreciates it, like me also, and it's like I thought it was really cool. That was like a really cool moment.
Yeah, it's the thought, It doesn't matter how big or small that artist is. It's just like, hey, like you were a part of this process, so like I want to shout you out. That's kind of dope.
So yeah, so it was really cool. And even like I guess like I'm just going through like moments where like it hits me like it's crazy. It's like when Alameda dropped a few weeks ago, man, that was so crazy. Like just seeing her process of where she was when she first got here to seeing where she's at now, and it's like seeing how good the song's doing. So I thought that was really cool. It's like just seeing that whole like when she first got here to LA, and I'm just like there's times where I'm just like, damn, this is so cool. Like to see her like success, like it's just such a good feeling knowing like they're growing there, and I've had the song on repeat so much. Like I just like put that shit on repeat. I just like put my headphones on and just like get her streams up, help her out, and it's just so cool. Like I could see that, and then seeing her like celebrate every small victory. Like I celebrate them with her, and it's just like so. Yeah, it's just I love seeing that, and it's like that's what makes me like appreciate music a lot more. Where I'm like, damn, like I like this is like what I want to do. I want to see people, I want to help people, not even like help people, just like see them, come up like that, and I just think it's really cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, speaking on the music industry, did you get a chance to watch that video that TPain released maybe like a week ago?
No, but I think I did hear a few things. That's the one where he said when Usher went up to him, right?
Yeah. It was on his podcast, right?
Yeah. So I did hear some of that. But I mean, yeah. So that was the one thing I got of it. Like, what else was he like going over in that video?
He was just talking about how the music was the same. That a lot of the music is the same in the industry, and I kind of just wanted to ask you about like what are your thoughts overall, just on even if you don't reference that comment that TPain did, but just as far as like the music industry compared to when you were a young fan listening to it, and now that you're older, you're seeing how it's changed. What are your overall thoughts on it now?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, I definitely, at one point, I was one of those kids where, like, oh, there's no true lyricists, this, all that, this new music, this mumble rap. But I mean, like, once I got older, I started realizing, like, they're doing what they love, so, like, why am I going to be hating on it? I'm not a big, like, I'm trying to think of someone. I guess someone, like, I'm trying to think, I don't know, like, froze, I forgot every rapper's name. We can cut that out. But it's like there might be an artist out there that like I just personally don't fuck with their music. It's not that I hate it. It's just not like my style. But it's like I hate it, especially now since like trap has been like on the rise for a while, and it's like a lot of people try to downplay it and say, oh, it's mumble rap. You can't even understand. It's like no, but they're also doing what they love.
True.
Why are you gonna hate on that? And it's like. I hate when people say like, "Oh, this is real music," especially when people say like referring to Kendrick. It's like, no, yeah, it's don't get me wrong. Like, I love Kendrick. It's 100% great music, but you can't you don't have to go up here and compare every single thing to one person, Or it's like people say like, "Oh, music nowadays," and it's like, come on, like there's great artists. You just are too lazy to find them.
You have to look harder.
You have to really look for these because there's great music out, especially now. Like, you know, I could go back to the 90s and there was great music then. Now it's like there's plenty of artists that are trying their best and doing, you know, working their hardest. And just for somebody to go in like their comments and just be like, it's all right. You know, and it's like, it's like, why would you do that? You know, it's like, for me, that's how I've always seen it. It's like, you know, you don't have to like love their work, but like you could at least acknowledge like that they're doing what they love. You know, and don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that do, you know, do stuff and just like try to make money and stuff, obviously.
100%, yeah.
You know, obviously it's a different story. You know, and for me, it's just like if somebody loves what they're doing, I'm not gonna go out there and try to like diminish it. Yeah, you know, that's what they like, you know. Yeah, for me, I don't think all music sounds the same. There might be some genres where it's like, yeah, maybe they do sound the same, but maybe I'm just not listening enough to it.
True.
You know, like I say, I'm not gonna go out there and say if I don't know anything about that genre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because people do that about rap all the time. Like, oh, rap music sounds like all they do is talk about sex, drugs, and alcohol. And it's like, yeah, you know, there's a lot of artists that do that, but you know, there's also a lot of artists that write about like what they want to talk about. You know, and it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you hate on that? They're telling their story. You know?
Yeah. No, that's one thing I find myself too not being like too hypocritical because I remember that was one. I remember we had to write like a persuasive essay in college, and it was like not all hip hop sounds the same.
Yeah,
like that was like my argument. And now I don't listen to the radio a lot personally, but like when I work with the kids or something, like sometimes there's going to be radio on in the background just because it's the easiest thing to put on. It's clean, so like it's a safe like bet. But I do feel like sometimes the radio music per se that's playing on the Kiss FMs, the Power 106s, they don't sound similar, but they have an algorithm. You mean they have like a certain like type of sound to them, where like they're saying this many catchy words. They're looking for a catchphrase here and there. They want like a catchy hook or a catchy chorus that like the kids can sing along to. So it's kind of like you kind of pick up on those trends, but I wouldn't say it sounds the same either.
No, yeah. I mean, like definitely, there's a lot of elements that will sound the same, and a lot of the stuff like on the radio too. You know, it's very, you know, it's a lot of it's pushed by these big labels and stuff. You know, once you get the labels behind you, you know, they help you out with stuff like that. You know, and it's like for me, it's like maybe I personally don't. I'm not too big into like mainstream pop and stuff like that, and like I used to be. Obviously, when we were kids, we would just hear it on the radio, we would like it.
Yeah.
But it's like at the same time, it's like the same thing. It's like, you know, they're doing what, you know, their thing. You know, it's cool, whatever. You know, but yeah, and it's like I also hate when people get mad at rappers for going mainstream. They're like, oh, like I don't get what the hate is. Like you want your favorite artist.
You want them to make it, right?
You want them to make it, and you want them to stay down. Like, and obviously, like there's a lot of people that are humble out there that just choose not, you know, don't want to go mainstream. I think it's something like a good example, maybe like Vince Staples.
Yeah.
You know, he's a big name, but he's not on the radio constantly. But like people know who he is. You know, and
I even think like artist. You know, rest in peace, but Nipsey Hussle was like that too.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, there's a lot of people like that, and it's like, you know, yes, it's like some people choose not to. Some people, it's like at the end of the day, like you're not making the decisions for them. Why are you gonna keep telling them to go back to their old music when they want to progress?
Yeah, I think I will say though, it is not disappointing, but like, you know, I was like a big Kid Ink fan when he was coming up.
Oh yeah,
because he was around that same age when Odd Future and like TD was coming up, and then like around 2014, like he like caught the mainstream wave, and then he just kind of made similar sounding music. Like a lot of his newer music now is just like all like that same beat, and I'm just like like this isn't like why I liked you, you know?
No, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get, you know, some people get frustrated behind it, but it's like, you know, I get what you mean though. It's like it kind of sounds the same now. It sounds repetitive, but it's like, you know, you're doing what you want. You know, you're making money, but you know, you definitely like appreciate the older music a lot more. So I get that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right on.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Segue or something.
Yeah, so we can switch gears over to baseball because I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit. We could talk about a little bit MLB, but first I wanted to ask you too, because you mentioned earlier when we were talking about coaching, and you coach, and how did you get into that, and what do you like most about coaching baseball?
So right now I'm coaching with the Dodgers RBI, so I'm sure you're familiar with the RBI programs. For those who don't know, reviving baseball in inner cities. So basically what the goal is to grow baseball in these cities where there's a lot more, you know, black and brown kids, or, you know, just
minorities
in general. So I'm working out in Watts, and it's really fun. You know, for me, coaching, I'll go back to like when I was 16 years old. I'd work at, you know, they had these stadium camps at Dodger Stadium every summer and winter. So I would volunteer because I did it once as a child, so I'd volunteer as a chaperone, but they'd have us, like, they'd give us our own team for all 4 days, and they would basically do all the drills together, and they'd play together, all, you know, these other players. So that's when I first started, and it's like, it was so much fun. I remember there were some of the kids who would get so excited. A lot of the teams we had, like, and, you know, they'd really get it. So the games would really go 45 minutes, and it would just be like a softball coach pitch and stuff. But, like, the way these kids got into the game was so much fun to watch. Seeing them hit home runs and stuff, seeing them celebrate, seeing them make all these catches. Like, they were just having the time of their life because they're playing on, you know, on the field. So it was like, it was such a cool experience for them. So then it's like when I started, you know, thinking like, oh yeah, I think I could take on coaching and stuff. And like I said, you know, I was never like the best baseball player, but I knew so much that I would just sit with the coaches a lot while we were in the dugout, and like I would go over stats with them from the other team, or, you know, see what they did their last at bat, and I'd help them, you know, adjust to it. Like, oh, this guy could, you know, hit an outside pitch to left field, maybe we just jam him inside, stuff like that. Or, hey coach, what if we call these plays and stuff? So they would, I mean, a lot of my coaches would tell me, like, you're gonna come back one day, right? You're gonna come back one day. I was like, oh, maybe. I don't know, but, like, you know, they definitely wanted me to help coach. And I did go back after I graduated. I went to go help out the freshman team, and I was just nervous because I was like, man, these kids are a little older. You know, I remember how we were as freshmen. I was like, is it gonna be that bad? Like, are they gonna treat us like, you know, like shit? They're gonna disrespect us? Yeah. So I was definitely a little nervous about that. But once you know, these kids were very, like, they would listen to everything I'd say. I'd tell them something, and they'd listen. I was like, oh, you know, it's crazy. Maybe, like, you know, I guess it was just like the way, like, for me, I would always just go out there with that approach, like, hey, you know, let me tell you this real quick, let me go over this with you. Maybe if you fix this, you fix that, you know. And it's like a lot of coaches, if they see you mess up instantly, just like snapping, you know. Yeah, they'll pull you out or something like that. You know? And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I've gotten to that point sometimes, but like my first instinct is always kind of just go like, hey, you know, maybe we work on this or do that instead, you know. So I feel like that was one reason, like, the kids really, like, didn't, like, you know, try. And obviously I wouldn't, like, try to act like I was so much bigger than them. I would, like, talk to them like normal, like, oh yeah, what do you guys got going on? How's school going? So yeah, and then after that, I started helping out in the little league teams, and it was fun. But, you know, it was just, I guess, too much. It's a lot of time. You know, it's gonna be kind of difficult to work with. But yeah, recently I got an email from the Dodgers Foundation, and they told me how it worked and how many hours you have to work a week. I was like, I think that's something I could do. Mm-hmm. You know, basically our role is to work with the foundation, but also coach our teams and stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I'd be interested in. There's a lot of cool opportunities in there, and it's like, you know, working with my dad, it also helped out because, like, you know, he's very, like, flexible about the hours. But so yeah, I guess right now it's like 3 jobs going on, but it's a lot of fun, and it's like it keeps me busy doing the stuff I love, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's really cool working with baseball again, coaching and stuff, because now it's like, you know, I could go back to it. And I didn't think I was going to go back into baseball, but now it's like, here I am, able to balance all 3 of these things, for sure. Yeah. I think that's one thing, too. The older I've gotten, I realized, like, I'd rather do 3 jobs where, like, they're not full-time jobs or part-time jobs, but they're fun. They're 3 jobs that you really enjoy doing versus, like, one job that pays probably the same as all those jobs together, but it's, like, not as fun or just not desirable, you know? No, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for my dad, because he runs his own company, so it's easier for me to just kind of be like, yo, maybe today I'm probably not going to be able to work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then obviously, like, with the label, it's just like whenever they need me, or, you know, with the Dodgers, I kind of make my own schedule also. So I mean, it's very, like, convenient for me, and, you know, it works out, especially now that it's summer, and I'm, you know, maybe some days I'll be busy the whole day, and some days I'll just have to, like, run errands and stuff, or stuff like that. So, okay. Yeah. Right on. Now, looking at the bigger picture, we just had the MLB All-Star break. Mm-hmm. Just kind of overall thoughts on, like, what teams or players stood out to you from the first half of the MLB season. To point out the obvious, the guy who plays down the street, Ohtani is something else, man. It's so crazy watching him play, because growing up, I always used to think it was impossible to see two-way players like that, or I would question why there wasn't enough. So to see him, like, right now, especially in, you know, I don't know if he's even reached his prime, which would be scary if he hasn't. Right. It's so cool to see, like, the feats he's accomplishing and everything he's doing. It's like every day he's doing something that hasn't been done in so long, and it's so cool to watch. You know, I've caught a couple Angel games this last season, just to go, like, watch him play, or just, you know, I do like going to Angel games because it's close by, it's pretty convenient. Mm-hmm. So he's something else. You know, I really like players like Juan Soto also. Mm. Man, watching him in the 2019 World Series was so cool. Yeah, it's like he the Nationals eliminated the Dodgers, but it was so cool to watch Soto play because it was such an interesting person to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Obviously, like, you know, Mookie Betts. I've been he's not having his best season, but like for me, I've been a huge fan of him since he was in Boston. So I remember I got a shirt from when I went to Boston a few years ago. I got a shirt with him on it. You know, and then, you know, now we're here. You know, he's a Dodger for life, basically.
That's
so.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what other players? I mean, there's people like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you know, and it's like there's a lot of players that are like underrated right now too. People like Tim Anderson, who I love watching, who's like a great player, but it's like he gets overshadowed by a lot of other people, or like who else? Like Marcus Semien. He's just Guerrero's teammate. You know, he gets overshadowed. He's having a great season, but it's like Guerrero's having an even better season.
Yeah,
there's definitely a surplus of like great baseball players out right now, and I feel like people that trying to say that baseball is dead don't really understand like what these players are doing. You know, they're not watching it. Oh, and I forgot to mention like Fernando Tatis. Like, people are saying he's like the next Griffey as far as like the way he, you know, presents himself. He has that confidence. He's something else, man. I just don't like it when he's playing the Dodgers for sure. You know,
he's a great showman though.
He's
a
great showman. Like if people try to hate on, especially other Dodger fans, and I'm like, okay, like do you guys hate him because he's not on the Dodgers, or do you guys like generally like not like watching people have fun in baseball? Because that's a big problem right now. People think you have to, you know, watch baseball in a library. You know, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that is like I feel like maybe not baseball, like the athletes themselves, like it's not a dying breed, but like there's this huge like divide between like there's a lot of people who are like, oh, play baseball the right way, or then there's the newer wave of players, and a lot of them are Latino, or just like they're not your typical like white player.
No,
and they just play a different style because they're from different countries, or they're from different parts where that's how they did it. And even going back to like Puig was like, I think was like kind of one of
controversial,
not like a pioneer, but almost in a way like a pioneer for these players like Tatis, for these players like Javi Baez. They're flashy. They would celebrate after home runs. Like he would lick his bat. Like people would get freaked out by that.
Exactly. So it's like it's so crazy because like when I was growing up, I was always taught that way of like, you know, playing the game the right way. Don't swing on 3-0 counts. Don't steal when you're up by this much. Show like sportsmanship. We couldn't even say like we couldn't shit talk in the dugout a lot because the coach would get mad, you know. And it was like he just wanted us to like he said this is us like respecting the game. And it's like I get it. There's some people that are out there like that, and it's like my mind was so closed when I was playing baseball in high school where it's like I didn't see these bigger issues where it's like I thought he's not playing the game the right way, or it's like, you know, and you would try to call people out because like, you know, if they were like Black or Mexican, you'd be like, oh, you know, they're not playing the game the right way. You know, or you'd see like these Dominican players and stuff. Yeah. Because like they weren't playing to your standards. So growing up, I was always like, oh, they're not respecting the game. They don't deserve to be in it. And it's like, and once I started getting older, I was like, well, if baseball's supposed to be fun, why are we getting mad at people that are having fun playing baseball? You know,
100%, yeah.
Because I'll admit, like I bought into that. I bought into the whole like, you know, being like not seeing that issue, just thinking like, you know, like the world revolved around me and my view of baseball. And it's like, you know, why are we pointing out these people? Like, why are we pointing out Tim Anderson and not pointing out Bryce Harper?
Yeah.
You know, and it happens a lot. Like, I think it was who was it? Abdul Herrera from the Phillies a few years ago. One of these scouts put an article basically like, I forgot exactly what it was, but it was like the way he was talking about him, like the language he used in the article was just kind of like why are you pointing him out when, you know, Bryce Harper is up in Washington? This is when he was back in the Nationals. Like, why are you just pointing out Herrera's like, you know, flaws and not someone like, you know, Bauer or, you know, all these other people? And it's like, I started realizing like, man, like I was part of the issue, and it's like now it's like why am I going to limit people from having fun from baseball because it's not to my standard? You know, I think it's great when people go out there and play their heart out and show emotion and stuff. Yeah, 100%. It might be frustrating when you're losing like 20-0. It's like at the same time, it is what it is. You know, it's like it's baseball's fun, so it's supposed to be fun. And yeah, I mean, like that's basically what I'm pushing. I'm trying to push more with you know, with RBI teams. It's like, no, it's supposed to be fun. Like go out there and, you know, do your thing. Make sure you have fun playing it. And it's like, there's gonna be times where it's not fun, but you know, it's everything you do really. You know? But yeah, it is interesting seeing that aspect of it, like seeing, you know, people get frustrated about it, and then it's like you call somebody childish for the way they're celebrating, but then the next batter that goes up, you're just gonna hit him in the ribs with the 98 mile per hour fastball. It's like, does that make you much more of a like a better person.
Yeah.
You hit him with the ball. It's like, no, it's like, yeah, you're going to go out there, let people have fun. If you gave up a home run, just don't give up a fucking home run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Shit like that,
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. Baseball's in a weird state, and I feel like it's going to be interesting, really. I feel like these next, 5 to 7 years are going to be pivotal because, I we both work with the youth, and I feel like baseball is the least popular sport. There's a lot more kids that I know, and I work in a predominantly Hispanic area, but soccer is bigger than baseball right now. So hockey's gaining in popularity. So I just feel like baseball is if they aren't adamant about growing the sport amongst the youth, they could really lose out.
Struggle. So from your perspective, since you work in a lot more you work with a lot more sports, would you say that baseball has the biggest split between the older generation and the younger generation? Because NBA fans are all in.
Yeah.
They're all in on the same page. Even NFL fans, there's still a lot of people that complain about celebration stuff, but as a majority of them are cool with it. Do you feel like baseball is the one that's most played, or do you think there's other sports that are kind of still in the middle?
No, I feel like baseball is a really big divide, and there's it's not just always older and younger. I mean, there's people our age too that I've met that are still nah, play the game the right way, and it's just what is the right way?
Exactly.
That was the right way to them in Venezuela when they're growing up and playing the sport.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And it was when I remember I saw a tweet during the whole. I don't know if you remember the whole Yermin Mercedes incident with Tony La Russa. I don't know why Tony La Russa is still managing that team, man. But I remember somebody tweeted the reason they're unwritten rules is because somebody started to write them down and realized how stupid they sounded.
Yeah,
I thought it was perfect. It's come on, what are unwritten rules? If they're unwritten, they're not in the rule book,
right?
It's what's the point? Why do we have to follow them more than we do the regular rules? It's it's so crazy to me that people get mad, and it's that whole Yermin Mercedes thing. It's just this last week he said he was going to retire because of that. And it's crazy. It's because you have so many people against it, and it's maybe if it was majority of people were agreeing with him, which to us on Twitter we probably see majority of people agreeing with him, but Twitter is only a small percentage of sports, the sports world, and there's this a lot more people out there that have different views. People that don't use smartphones and stuff, they have different views from that. They see it as oh, he was doing the wrong thing, but it's that's their way of seeing it. It's no, he was just playing baseball. That's what he was taught to do. He came over here, that's his job.
Right. And we do see, I mean, not so much in baseball, we haven't seen his worse or bad incidents, but definitely in the NBA, when fans came back, we saw different things where a fan poured popcorn on Russell Westbrook, or just calling him inappropriate names. And just think about how much flack that Mercedes is catching from stuff we don't see on Twitter, right? From the fans, from maybe a coaching staff, or a employee of the White Sox, So it's just, he could be hearing it from all different kinds of places, and it just kind of, I felt for him when he said he was going to retire, because it was damn, did he really get bullied into retiring? I mean, this is a young player,
Yeah, and it's you see someone like Marcus Stroman who just fully embraces that. He knows people are out for him, and it's funny because instead of people saying no, we're not, people are proving his point even more. They're calling him the N-word. They're saying all this stuff. They're saying all this racist stuff to him. And it's funny because a lot of these aren't even burners. They're actual accounts. There's people with profile pictures that they tweet regularly, but they're saying all this stuff to him. But he's proving their point. Why are you gonna point him out? And it's it just doesn't make sense. I don't get why. It's he's out there doing his job, and it's people try to call him out and say oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's how do you know more than him from his perspective? It's that was one thing I always didn't understand, is I never understood other people's perspectives because I didn't understand it. It's why am I going to tell a black man about his life that he went through when I didn't live his life for him? And it's I mean, people just don't get that. People are oh no, you don't understand. You never did. It's oh, how do you know? It's you weren't there. It's
exactly.
Yeah, so it's the shit like that. It's crazy, and it's all this we could just, I know it's we haven't even said it's not fair to these players because you're pushing more players out. It's there's a reason why there's a drop in Hispanic, black kids, or at least Hispanics in the U.S., black kids in the U.S., or why there's not so many baseball players. If you look at the percentage back in the 70s, it was such a, I forgot what the exact percentage is, but to the recent, I remember, I think it was 2014 or 15, they did the percentage of it, and it was only 3%, minorities or black and brown, people in the league, compared to what it was in the 70s. I don't know if you're familiar with the date, September 1st, I think it was 1971. That was the first all-minority lineup, and you can look it up, and that was the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were the first team to send out just, Hispanic and black people out there. And that's something that's still celebrated today. but how many times does it happen in between then?
Right.
You know, it's like it's dipping a lot. You're losing a lot of people's interest in it because you want them to play at a certain standard, and like, so you're gonna kick these people out for playing that way. It's like, what's the point? You know, they're just playing. They're great. There's a lot of great players out there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the history of the sport, because look, it's called America's pastime, right? And it was one of the few sports that you could say like originated in the United States, or at least the form that we know.
Yeah,
but like, it's growing bigger than that. It's international now, and I think that's one thing. Like, yeah, we want that. Like, I think fans have to understand, like, you know, they have to come to the realization, like, okay, for it to grow internationally and for us to get a better pool of players, we're gonna have to open the doors for different people like this. And I just think all these people are pioneers. Like I said, Yasiel Puig walked so that Fernando Tatis can now jog, and then he's jogging so someone in the future could run.
Exactly.
I think of it like, it's obviously different, but like Cam Newton for the Carolina Panthers caught a lot of flack when he was doing all the celebrations, and the whole team was. But now a lot more players are celebrating, and there's a lot less complaining about it. So I feel like, you know, Cam Newton walks, so a lot of these quarterbacks can run now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, if we want to open the door to like more people, it's like they're trying to do these series in London and Mexico and stuff, but you're not going to do it if you hold it to that standard, because you're just basically saying my way of baseball is the right way, and if you don't play like that, you're not going to be able to play.
Yeah.
When it's like in the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, all these countries, they're literally playing baseball every day. Like, it's their life. Like, that's what they do. They go play baseball, go home, you know, and they do the same thing the next day. They go to, you know, these facilities and stuff. They're literally like living and breathing baseball, and it's like, you think you're the standard because like you coach a team like, you know, 2 days a week. Like, people have to play to your standard when these guys are literally playing like every day of the week. And it's like, that's how it is now, you know, and it's so cool seeing all these international teams. You know, for me, I'm a big fan of international baseball. Yeah. The World Baseball, I mean, the Olympics are going on. They don't start games until, I believe, Friday. I just love watching international baseball because I love seeing how many more countries are being added to these. You know, and it's like, now you're going to see teams from different countries like that aren't big on baseball. Someone like New Zealand or South Africa. I really like watching the Italian baseball team. They're one of my favorite teams, probably like besides like Mexico. Or, you know, it's like seeing like the, you know, Great Britain baseball team. It's so cool seeing that baseball is growing in all these different places. Right. You know, and it's like, I hope it just gets bigger, but there's people that, you know, are trying to gatekeep it, and it's not fair, because you're not giving people the chance to get, you know, come out of, you know, different countries to play, you know, different countries where it's not as popular, and, you know, it's either going to get worse or better. You know, it's like, it's up to us to kind of just like push it so that way, you know, more people play baseball. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. All right, so to tie a bow on the baseball conversation, do you have a favorite to win the World Series this year? I mean, like, if I'd be biased, I would want to say the Dodgers. But I mean, the thing is, like, it's always tough for me. I don't like making predictions when it comes to baseball, because it's like, I don't know. It's just such a it's such a toss up. Like, you never know who's gonna win, really, unless it's like a really, like, in 2018 and 2020, the Dodgers and Red Sox kind of had that, like, you know, they're definitely gonna win. And then 2019, the Nationals came out of nowhere. Nationals literally had the worst bullpen ERA of all time, and they won the World Series. Like, people don't realize, like, in basketball, you could kind of tell who's going to be like the you know, the juggernaut of the league, but it's like in baseball, it's so hard to tell. I thought the Braves were going to be in first place. I thought the Dodgers were going to be in first place. You know, I thought the Cardinals were going to be in first. Like, and now I look at the standings now, and it's like, holy shit, everybody's all over the place. But it's like, you know, it is kind of a toss-up. You know, me being biased, I would, of course, say the Dodgers. Let's see, I'm going to be realistic about it. I'm trying to think. You know, as much as I hate to say it, the Astros look like they're locked in. I feel like they're feeding off that energy right now.
It sucks,
like, it sucks, but, like, I do see them, you know, kind of, you know, maybe even someone like the White Sox. But, yeah, I mean, I would hope the Dodgers for sure. I guess in the National League, I'd probably, let me see. I don't know. It's kind of tough in the National League to tell, because, you know, the Dodgers are still going to be that team. Yeah. It's almost like they're the Patriots of baseball, where they go in, they already know, like, they're ready for playoffs. They'll play whatever in the regular season. They're not going to, you know, probably won't look their best, but when it comes to the playoffs, they're a whole different team. Yeah. We saw that with the Astros last year. They literally had, their record was under 500, and they made it to the ALCS. They were one game away. They literally came back from a 3-0 lead to make it 3-3. Like, because they just know how to play in October.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so crazy seeing that it's like, you know, these teams. You know, there's a lot of great teams out there, but it's like it could all change right away. Like you have a bad series, and next thing you know, you're going to be in last place.
Yeah.
In a few weeks, and it's. I mean, I'm hoping the Dodgers pick it up, because I think it'd be great to just go back to back. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. It is kind of tough to tell, honestly, from this time. But I mean, I guess when it's closer to like October, it's probably a little easier, because even from now, we could have a team that's in first, and they could just go down to like.
And get injuries.
Place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's basically who can stay the healthiest and who can catch fire the most. You know, because if a team's riding a hot streak right now, you'd be like, oh, it's too early. You know.
Yeah. So,
so I don't know. I'd probably lean more towards the Red Sox, just because I like how they played this year, and they've done it with like a lot of like just solid role players, you know, and they've been there with like, and the manager's been there, and I believe that they could perform in the postseason. But other than that, like you said too, like Cardinals, Braves, Phillies, I think they're all going to be better this year.
Yeah.
They've been pretty banged up. The White Sox would be another team I like, but they're pretty banged up.
Their bullpen just isn't enough.
Yeah, so it's just there's a lot of teams with just a lot of holes, but we'll see how the trade deadline affects that too.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it'll be interesting to kind of keep tabs on it. It always is. I really like that one. What was it? The 2016 year, or the Royals?
2015 was the Royals.
Yeah, 2015. But the year before, like they got to the point. Lost to the Giants, and then the next year they were just like on a tear, like we're destroying everybody.
The whole season they knew it was theirs. They just went on. They just took over the league. It was so crazy to watch. But yeah, I mean that was cool to watch. So who's your favorite team?
I like Arizona and the Oakland A's.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I like. Yeah,
you know what?
We don't talk about them this year.
The A's, like the A's, I always liked them as a team. I guess the whole Moneyball thing caught my attention, but once I really started to understand what the whole scheme was, I realized like. Because I don't know if, how you see it. Do you see them as like the Moneyball team, or do you see them as my managers our owners just cheat? Because
I see them as a Moneyball team. Yeah. I feel like because you could play the perception of their cheat, but at the end of the day, like I'm a big fan of like small market teams. I do like it when like the Rays made the World Series, even though they probably had no business being there in a full season. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of cool to hear stories like that. And I don't know. I just think it makes you work that much harder from like an entire organization, because like now your scouts got to work harder, because the A's know, the Diamondbacks know, like when these players come up for a big contract, like we can't pay them. So like they're probably going to walk to somewhere bigger, but can we win while they're still young? Can we add some cheap veteran pieces along with them? You know, like the A's right now, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson's their guys, but for 2 more years, they're probably not going to be A's, you know?
So, I mean, like, the thing with those is, like, because now we're seeing almost every team do this, where it's like, you know, a lot of these cities, like, don't have the money because they're not bringing in as many fans as other teams. But I feel like one misconception is that, like, a lot of the times people think their market determines their value. The thing is, like, you have, the A's manager, for example, he has more money than the Dodgers. The A's owner has more money than the Dodgers owner, but it's like, since they're not bringing in that revenue from the games as much as the Dodgers are, they kind of just say like, okay, well, we'll just do this round, we'll cover. Like Blake Snell went on CC Sabathia's podcast a few years ago, and basically said, once I started getting good, I started to get sad because I knew the Rays weren't going to want to keep me, because he said like they don't pay anybody there. He's like, you know, and it's tough. It's like they do have the money, but it's like, I mean, a lot of times they just don't fund it towards, you know, like one thing with like what the Cubs are doing, a lot of people don't realize they're cutting back on their players. They're not investing on their players, and they're supposed to be this big market team. You know, they're in Chicago, but what they're doing is they're not paying their players, but they're investing the real estate around Wrigleyville so they could build all these, you know,
attractions,
these stuff, like these new condos and stuff. And it's like did you be a manager because I'm sorry, I keep saying manager. Did you become an owner because you wanted to, like, you loved the sport, or did you become an owner because you realized it was a great investment, and you, instead of putting money towards like the teams and stuff, you know, that's why like a lot of minor league players aren't getting paid as much, and that's not even just like a small market, you know, team. That's like every team, you know, it's not fair to them, where it's like, you know, we were talking about this before. It's like these people are saying like, you know, if you want it bad enough, you'll take it, but it's like, think about these kids that are coming out of different countries, coming to the U.S., have never been here. They have to just figure it out, and you just drop them here with like nothing in their pockets, just kind of figure it out. And like we said earlier, the whole you know, players sleeping in their car, like it's not fair that like there's money behind the teams, but it's like,
where is it going?
They're not helping them out. They're not like, giving them the funds they would need, and there's like, they're not expecting like steak dinners every day or something, but they just want to live more comfortably. And it is crazy to see this, like, that's basically like this podcast, Tipping Pitches. That's like what they go over a lot, like stuff like that. Going over the more like the big labor issues in the league. Yeah. And it goes for every sport, but it's like, it sucks that like players have to go through a lot of stuff like this. And it's like, I remember there was one player. All he would eat was Domino's. He ate Domino's 30 days straight because he didn't know how to speak English, and because it was like the cheapest thing to get for him. Oh, so for 30 straight days, he was just eating Domino's. And it's like, then you go into like practice and your trainer's yelling at you for eating unhealthy, but it's like, you can't go and buy like groceries at the store and stuff. It's just like, it's great. I hope that takes a turn. I hope these teams like start to realize like, if you invest more in your players, they're going to be better. Right. If you give them better resources, they're going to be better. And people are saying they're going to be lazy. It's like, if people really want it, they're going to appreciate, they're going to take advantage, because there's a lot of people, baseball is a very expensive sport, and that's what that's one of the biggest things with RBI. It's like, you want to make it more affordable for people, because, there's so much talent everywhere, but if you just go for the kids that are going to throw money at you, it's like, where are you gonna get? Where are you gonna go with that? You're just gonna keep yourself limited to one type of player. That's why I feel like it's very important that like you want to invest in these players with when they're younger, so that way they could only get better. And it's a shame, but like I hope baseball starts to like take a different approach soon. Yeah. We could only wish hopefully start unionizing the minor league teams and stuff, and give the players better wages. Yeah. I wish, people like Chapman would stay in Oakland. I wish people like Blake Snell would stay in Tampa. Yeah. Because they love it there, but it's like, you can't become emotionally invested in a player when they're playing in teams like that. And I'm sure you know that as an A's fan. It's a shame, but it's like, that Chapman's going to leave soon. That like, they're not going to extend. I mean, the beginning of Moneyball, what was it, Jeremy Giambi? Yeah. Or was it Jason? Jason, I'm sorry, Jason. Like, they knew he was gonna leave, and it sucks because like as a fan, you love these players. I love that I'm gonna be able to see Mookie Betts in a Dodger jersey for the next 13 years, and I wish every fan base would get to experience that. The Padres are a small market team also, but they kept Tatis because they saw how much of an attraction he brought. Right. They said we'll invest in him now. The money's gonna be coming in because especially 100%. Now San Diego's like
it's popping.
They're popping right now. It's so cool to see. Like. Seeing those years of just seeing them as like a joke, but it's like I don't get why people can't appreciate. Like I'm a Dodger fan, obviously, but like I still could look back and appreciate what the Padres are doing. I think it's cool. I remember in 2013 when the Dodgers started this like dynasty that they're on right now. That was so exciting in 2013. Seeing that happen, it was like, wow, like we're the exciting team that everybody hates. The Padres is the opposite. They're the exciting team everybody likes. So that's just because they're Cisneros. It's like it's crazy, but like. Yeah, I mean, like, I just hope these players, it's like, people are always like, oh, you just buy your players, you buy your team. It's like, no, they're just paying the players what they're worth. Yeah. You're paying Mookie Betts what he's worth.
They're not scared to spend, exactly, and I think, I was listening to a football podcast the other day, but they were talking about how there's only like 5 franchises, like, in football that are, like, actively every year trying to win a Super Bowl, right? Oh, yeah. And, like, the 49ers, the Steelers, like, probably the Cowboys, and a few other teams, like, their goal, like, 100% bought in, let's just win a championship every year, or let's get to that Super Bowl.
No, for sure.
And I think you could say that for the same in every sport, right? There's like 4 or 5 teams that are just like completely bought in every year. Yeah. But then there's a lot of teams like they're just kind of like, oh, like let's just try and be good. Yeah. And if we make the playoffs, cool. Like that's a win for us. The Pacers. Baseball, sometimes I even feel like the Diamondbacks are like that, or the Marlins. Like let's just try and see what we could do, scrap up to be pieces together, and if we make the playoffs, that's a plus for us,
No, for sure.
And it's kind of sad, obviously, but that's, again, it goes to the hands of the owners. How much are they willing to invest? How much are they willing to... Is this just a side hobby for them? I even think, like, the Angels could be so much better than what they are, but I just don't think Artie Moreno's, like, bought in, like, let's make this a winning franchise.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. Like, I mean, for me, like, I'm personally just not a big fan of Artie Moreno. To be honest, I'm not really a big fan of any of the owners. It's just like, but it's like, it's so crazy because like the Angels are like a few good players away from being this, like, the best team in the league. Yeah. With Ohtani, Trout, Rendon. Like, you just need to throw in like some solid pitching, and it's like next thing you know, they're a scary team. They could take on the Astros, and
But even then too, like what I really like, even though people say the Dodgers buy players, whatever, they've always had top prospects coming in and out. They pay their players, and they have top prospects. Angels never had really like, obviously with the exception of Adele and Trout, they never had good homegrown like prospects. And there's a lot of franchises like that. And it's just kind of like, well, I think it starts there. They've never, like you're telling me in the past like 8 years, they haven't been able to breed a pitcher through their farm system. Yeah. Like that's pretty
so
bad.
Crazy. And it's like, I think it all has to do with the coaching. Obviously, is like the player development because the Dodgers. Like, I remember it was they put the 27. They do this every year where they put the rosters up and how many players are homegrown, how many players were traded, and how many players were like free agents.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers always have the highest homegrown.
Yeah.
Because you have people like Lux, Seager, Bellinger, Kershaw. They all came into the system, and it's all like obviously it's not all the credit doesn't just go to the player development. It obviously goes to the players, but it's like when they got Mookie Betts, it was like, oh man, you guys are just trying to buy the ring at this point. It was like, no, they literally let him go as a salary dump. They did not want to pay him anymore, so they just let him go.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't people getting mad at the Red Sox? People are getting mad at the Dodgers.
Not trying to win.
The Red Sox literally gave away their franchise player
for like what?
To save money. What are you saving money for? You're a baseball team. You want to put out a good team out there so they could win. And now it's like obviously the Red Sox are back in pace, but it's like, imagine how much better they would have been with Mookie Betts this year.
100%.
And it's like it's just not fair to the fans that like they have to suffer from it where it's like the owners aren't going to put the money in to these teams, so it's like, oh well, I guess it's like obviously there's a difference between rebuilding and just getting rid of your players. The Cubs since the beginning of the season have been wanting to just get rid of Bryant.
Yeah.
And then they get on that hot streak, and now it's like, okay, we're back. We still want to get rid of him. It's like, okay, like he. Think about what they did. 108 years, no World Series. They bring up this core infield, and they bring them their first championship. That was literally like history. People didn't think they'd see the day the Cubs would win the World Series, and now you're like, yeah, we'll just let them go.
If I were them, they'd just keep that. You keeping that like core together, Baez, Bryant, Rizzo, like that's gonna do good for this fan base, even if they don't win a World Series again.
Yeah, it's just cool to see them play.
Yeah, exactly, because you're just like, you'll always remember that crew. And like the Giants kind of do it with like Crawford, with Posey.
Yeah, they have the same.
I think it's just those two actually now, but like
I think Belt's still in there, but I don't think he's playing. I think he might be injured. But it's like, it just sucks because like, I mean, at least with me with the Dodgers, I've obviously I've been kind of like emotionally attached. Like someone like Kershaw, like I really hope he doesn't leave.
I don't think
since I was like 8 years old, I've been watching him pitch, and then it's like, people have came and gone, but it's like at least they have a chance to like play with the team and like prove something. I look at for me, like I still look back at the 2017 World Series and see that group of players, and like they were so good. They like you look up an article like best team to not win the World Series. Like 2017 Dodgers are probably like on the top of that list.
It's crazy.
They were and they were all homegrown or free, or they were released by their team. Look at Turner. He was released by the Mets. He went to a alumni game at Cal State Fullerton. One of the Dodgers, I think if it was Scouts, I forgot who it was. They saw him there. They talked to him, told him to come over. Now look where he's at.
Yeah.
And then same thing with like Taylor and Muncy.
Rich Hill was like that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it was such a great team that literally like they did it themselves. Like, it wasn't like it's not like they had Mookie Betts on there. It's not like they had like Bauer or anything. They literally like had that team from that was the core, and it was like so cool to watch because like I had never seen the Dodgers in the World Series before that. My dad had seen them so many times with different teams, and it's like for me to see 2017 and then 2018 and then obviously like 2020. It was cool to see a lot of the same players were there,
Yeah.
And it's especially cool to watch like these teams with like my family, especially like my dad and my brother and my uncle who love baseball. Like we get to like, grow a relationship with these players, and it's like we get to watch them play. And a lot of these players are gonna kind of like grow out of it, but like go to different teams. But like at least we have those memories with them, and I think that's what makes baseball such a cool sport. And I feel for these teams that like the fans don't get to appreciate the players because they know they're gonna leave. And it sucks. I'm sure it's like Rays fans wanted to see Willie Adames in there, but obviously, they have Wander Franco, so maybe that might be a different story. You have him in the system, but it's just like it's a shame. But
those players like Joey Votto's, the players
exactly.
like those kind of guys are slowly slowly disappearing.
Yeah, and it is a shame, but I mean,
Yachty.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but I mean, I guess we now we can only wait and see like where it's gonna go from there.
True.
You know?
Good point.
But yeah,
this was fun. This was a lot of fun. Before we wrap things up, I did want to ask you as far as like, what are some of like your ultimate like goals? Like, what do you want like Nico's legacy to be like when it's all said and done?
So for the most part, I definitely want to help as many people as I can in music. Whether that be just supporting them, being around them, or like actually helping them develop. You know, eventually I want to get into like producing, songwriting, stuff like that, you know, or I'm also working on music video directing. But I guess the end goal is like the legacy I want to leave behind is being like helping people in their careers and like just being there, making sure that they know that I'm there, you know, throughout their whole career, you know, and that's definitely something that I want to be, you know, helping out with. And then as far as like baseball, kind of the same thing. Helping people get to where they want to get, you know, teaching them, you know, what they could do to like, you know, I guess, you know, just helping like, what would be the word? I guess just like helping them on their abilities and stuff, and it's like pushing them to be better in school, and then eventually like I want to start like a, you know, a program where it's like you help, you know, almost like what RBI is, but not funded through MLB, you know, because it'd be a lot easier. I feel like, you know, I want to start something like that where it's like, you know, you grow baseball in these cities or even like eventually different countries.
Yeah.
So that way, you know, you give other kids opportunities. You make baseball more affordable, you know, because like I said, it's expensive. And, you know, a lot of people miss out on it because they don't have the opportunities. So, you know, I definitely want to start stuff like that up, you know, and then just, you know, give people resources. The same thing with music. Like I'm going to open up a studio soon for the artists I work with. You know, I want them to have a space where it's easier to work in. You know, it's like, I know it's hard to find studio space a lot. You know, I want to make sure people around me have that, and then, you know, so I would do the same thing for baseball. So, yeah, I guess I really just want to like make sure that there's resources available for people. You know, that they have the opportunities, the same opportunity that some people have. That people who want to get into music management have the same opportunities I did. Because you know, I was very fortunate. I don't take it for granted where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
You know, being around the people that I'm around, you know, people like Musa, you know, it's like, you know, and he would always tell me that too. You know, I'd make sure that I knew that, you know, he'd let him know that I didn't take it for granted. And I really appreciate the things everybody does for me, everybody around me in the label. And yeah, like, you know, I want people to experience that too, because there's a lot of people that, you know, that probably want it more than I do, you know, and it's like, yeah, you know, I don't see, it's not like there's a limit to how many people could work here, you know, if you really want to, you know, I'll help you out with that. You know, I get people that kind of get competitive about it and say, oh, I don't want it. It's like, no, I mean,
there's enough for
everybody.
everybody.
It's an issue, yeah, there's enough for everyone, you know, whether that's baseball and like, you know, baseball might be tough because you're trying to make it to the major league, but, you know, at least give people that opportunity. It's like, yeah, I definitely feel like it's, you know, because I was so fortunate to get the resources I had, whether it was in baseball or music, I want that to be just as easy for other people, you know, because like my life is probably different from other, you know, my life is definitely different from other people. I was like, why do I have, like, you know, why can't they, you know, get the same stuff I do, for sure, you know?
Right on.
And like that's really what I want to do overall.
Awesome. I like hearing that. So as we wrap things up, then I have a few more fun introspective questions for you.
Cool.
If you could have any toppings on a pizza, what would they be?
I mean, for me, I'm always just original, just a pepperoni, or even just like cheese.
Okay.
I'm just like a very like boring when it comes to the pizza.
Hey, no, that's simple. Simple is better.
Sometimes I'll go to like mod or, you know, or biology, and I'll try. I'll be able to like chicken in there, or, like mushrooms. I mean, I do like mushrooms and stuff, but like I guess my go-to is always just like pepperoni for sure.
Okay, right on. If you could be reincarnated to any animal, what would it be?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, let me see. Oh man, it's tough because a lot of animals get obviously preyed on and they get eaten. I guess like a bird, because you could just, it's like, you know, there's not a lot of other animals. I mean, I guess unless another bird's following you. I mean,
you could be like the biggest bird.
Yeah, for me, like, yeah, I guess bird, just like I could avoid that. Just like fly away, or just like get view, like just fly around, like, you know, seeing different views. So yeah, I guess a bird. I don't know what type of bird, but
okay. If you can meet any person or multiple people, dead or alive, and speak with them, who would you want to talk to the most?
Ooh, so I guess I'd have like answers for like both music and baseball.
Yeah.
So like, I guess my favorite player I guess it's crazy because I guess these two could kind of connect. So my favorite player I never watched was Roberto Clemente.
Oh, yeah.
He actually has the same birthday as me. For me, it's just like, I guess watching it when I was younger, I would see how, like, I'd see footage of him playing, and he literally went out there and just, like, played like it was the last game he was ever going to play. The way he threw, the way he hit, like, the way he hustled, it was just so cool to watch. So for him, he was always, like, a big, like, you know, I'd look up to him, how he played, like, when I was playing, and just, like, you know, that, like, it wasn't, like, a careless attitude, but, like, I guess today's standards, a lot of these players, like, you know, you could see, like, you know, he kind of paved the way for that, too, also, you know, it's, like, you know, just play hard. So, I mean, for me, like, I think it'd be cool to, like, just, you know, it'd be cool to just talk to him and stuff, you know, obviously someone like Jackie Robinson also, you know, there's a lot of trailblazers in baseball, and, you know, it is cool to, you know, I do think it'd be cool to, you know, just like meet people, you know, some of those people. I hope, you know, soon I'd be able to get a chance to meet Rachel Robinson. I think that'd be cool. So, and then as far as music, I mean, I think since you said Dead or Alive, like for me, like when I first came into the label, one of the artists I was most excited about meeting that was outside of the label was Mac. And you know, it was such a shame because like me and my brother were such huge fans. He was one of the first like rappers I got into from this era, from like the TD, Odd Future, ASAP Mob, like, you know, that kind of like psychedelic rap era. Yeah. You know, I remember I started listening to him in 2010. So I just grew a love for him. You know, for me, it's like one of my favorite albums ever is The Divine Feminine. It's such a good album. So yeah,
dude, I'm telling you, man, that
it's actually my screensaver. So nice. Yeah, for me, it's like, you know, I do wish I would have got a chance to meet him because I know like the way he was is just like, you know, for me, like one thing I struggled with going into the music industry is like, I guess, being myself, because around my friends, they were used to seeing me like that in school. But like when I got to music, I thought I had to be a certain way to like carry myself a certain way. But it's like I'd see the way he would act in like videos of him and stuff, and he would literally just go out there and just like, you know, just be himself. So like it was just like so cool to watch. Like he definitely kind of helped me with that, like, you know, walk me through like. And now there's a lot of people I'm like I could be around, like someone like Alameda. I could literally just be myself around her, like Kembe. Or, you know, now like yesterday I went to the Zay shoot, and it was like that was the most fun I had ever had, and just like I didn't just feel like somebody who was a burden to everybody around them. Like people were actually like standing like talking to me, so it just like it felt fun, you know. And I was just like, I could actually just like be myself. Like I could say the stupid jokes I always say, and people would like laugh about it, or I could like talk to people about serious things, and like, you know, they'll just take me serious about it. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, watching, you know, how Matt got so much respect from other people, especially from people in the label, and you know, he wasn't like everybody in the label, but he was just like cool to, you know. I don't know, maybe he was. I just think obviously I didn't know him, but like, yes, I think that's one. And then, you know, I think that for music he'd probably be the one, because, you know, they're both from Pittsburgh, which is crazy. Yeah, right. So because he has that song. He says the best thing out of Pittsburgh since Clemente with the Pirates. Yeah, that's always been one of my favorite like Mac bars, because obviously my favorite player, I never watched when I remember being like 7, 8, 9 years old and just going out and just trying to like throw like him, or just like hit, you know, swing the bat like him. So
that's tight.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, 2 more questions. Cool. If you were stranded on an island but food and water provided, what are 3 things you'd like to bring to pass the time?
Ooh. Okay, so if I bring like a tea with a back be involved, would that be a separate item?
No, you could package stuff. So
okay, I guess like my baseball stuff for sure. It's something I could listen to music with, whether that be like a phone or a laptop, obviously. Like I could, you know, I guess with a computer I could get like books and everything in there. Oh man, this is kind of tough. The third one. I mean, I'd say something that has to do with cooking, because like like, you know, but like I'd have food there because I love cooking. But man, what is something I would use? I feel like it's such a like easy answer, but I can't think of it. Let me see. I guess like an instrument, so I could just like perfect it by the end of it. Hopefully by the time I get saved, and just like, I'm a different person. Okay. But yeah.
All right, sounds good. And last question: if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Keep being a good person, but, you know, be better. You know, because I know there's a lot of times where I could have been a better person, and obviously like I was on a good route to where I get to the point where I'm at today. But I guess just be a better person. You know, I would be honest, like from where I was like a few years ago, I was a completely different person. You know, maybe I just didn't have the same values I had. You know, I wasn't as aware as stuff that was going on. You know, it was almost like an ignorance to it, but like, you know, just be a better person. You know, respect other people more. You know, and it's like, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, you know, and like just understand that God has a plan for you.
Okay.
And just make sure that, you know, whatever you love doing, make sure you know, you have a passion for it. Make sure that, you know, it doesn't die down, you know. Make sure you know, you make your family proud. Make sure you're, you know, you just show love to everybody around you, you know. Like everybody around me knows, like I'll try to show as much love as I can to everybody, because like I really appreciate people, you know, and I feel like even then, like if I tell people a lot, I feel like it's not enough to tell them how much I appreciate them.
That's
good.
good.
You never, it can never be too much.
Right.
You know, and it's like I want people to like, you know, it's like I love when people show that love to me, so it's like I want to show more to them, you know, and it's like just keep loving people harder, I guess.
There you go.
I mean, just be a good person and show more love.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Do you have anything you'd like to plug before you go?
Okay, let me see. I have a few things. So, Animal will be releasing more music soon. Stream "Wish You the Worst" by Alameda. "The House is Burning" coming out on July 30th.
Yeah.
Man, what else do I have? Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Yes, my dad's company, Alta California, Terrazzo Flooring. And yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
And yeah, much love for everybody.
Yeah. So I've been really bad about this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of stickers that I got made, and I've just been super bad about like putting them out there, promoting them. So I'm gonna start doing this where I just give the guests, when they're in person, obviously, some stickers. If you want some more,
cool. Thank you.
You know,
I appreciate it.
But we got some stickers, guys.
Cool. Thank you.
I'll post it for those who are listening, audio only. It's on the Mike and I Instagram page. Go check it out.
Cool.
I have different stickers. But yeah. Anyways, thank you again.
Thank you.